things have really changed over the years. When you think of when we started with the crank cars and now where everything has gone.
Because the president of Cadillac, he had a friend or a wife who broke her arm.
Yes.
And he said, we got to do something different.
And hence the starter battery.
Yeah.
And when you think of how far, where a battery was back 100 years ago and how advanced they've become.
It's like they say, some of my best memories are in the past.
I remember these old rubber cases. Do you remember those?
I remember when they would emboss the labels.
Mm-hmm.
I did do that a little bit.
Still like to know who's in this picture.
Peter Aspinall, oh, he was great. He was a wonderful fellow. He was with Chloride. He was from London. He was English. And it's from Daniel Battery. And this goes way back.
Well, there's the light. There's your dad.
Yeah, yeah. Standing up behind Milt Zilas. He was with Globe Union.
Who else do you remember on there?
Well, Roger's sitting in from Standard Industries.
Well, he started with your grandfather.
You know, the funny thing is that when I got to understand him and know what he was doing, I don't know of anybody who was a smarter battery person, because he understood batteries, but he understood the engineers and the people who worked for him. He built them up to be technicians and battery people. But just the fact that what he knew, where he came from in 1946, getting started out repairing batteries, and how he learned about the smelting.
Do you remember these days when a junk battery was $1 for return?
Well, I like to, but when I looked at it, I thought it was still when we had it up in a different location. But yeah, we probably complained about the high price of scrap.
At $1.
At $1. But then the farmers probably complained about the low price.
What I like to see, because I first started coming to BCI only maybe 15 years ago, and being in the industry, I've been fairly long, but for where batteries were 40 years ago and where they advanced to today, I mean, there wasn't AGM batteries. There wasn't the maintenance free. They were just coming into, in the early 80s, the pure maintenance free. Before you had to pop the pods and put in water, distilled water, and now they're starting batteries are maintenance free. And now some of the applications for batteries didn't even exist 40 years ago. When you think about, we didn't do batteries for data centers or telecommunications and backup power. It was pretty much starting and lift truck batteries and mining batteries. And now look at what we're doing. What I want to point out, something, Dan, that's near and dear to my heart, is the women in global battery industry. And that kind of reflects back on Sally. She was a trendsetter. She was one of the few, one of the first few CEOs of a battery company. And I think she'd be proud to know that now we have this whole industry organization that's dedicated to promoting women to grow in our industry from all over battery types. And I think that's a real great milestone.
It's a good point.
And even now, looking at some of the work we've been doing, like with the DOE, you know, we've had the Department of Energy come visit us and look at how they can perhaps support us in the endeavors and the research and development. Look at with Argonne National Laboratory. It's really, the research and development has really advanced over the years. Think about when, with Fred Keller, when he first started, what do you think he would think now or say now after all these years of the advancements? When you think of where he started and where it's gone.
I guess he would say, well, if you take a basic technology and pretty intelligent people, I'm not surprised.
Now here's somebody
who really likes ice cream.
Roger's another icon in the industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so is Henry Scheinbaum.
A lot of good people that have stayed in the industry over the years, many years. Now here we see some people we know. You're talking about David Weinberg. That's a great shot of you and your dad.
That's because his hair was still wet from the shower.
So it wasn't sticking up, it was flat, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Reed-Lieberman bill was a little bit scary because, and I forget the exact year, but I think the lead price per pound was like 30 cents, maybe 36 cents tops. Let's introduce a 50-cent per pound lead tax. And they figured that would just wipe everything out. Now, what you do is, you know, when you go to Washington, is you do your study. You study your person. So I can remember vividly going with my dad to one of the senators, maybe in Missouri, and we got talking, and my dad said, "Say, Senator, you're pretty involved in Veterans Affairs, aren't you?" And the senator goes, yeah, Veterans Affairs is very big on my docket. I'm very much, and my dad said, you know, when you go to those hospitals and you see some of those patients, they're pushed around by orderlies in a hand wheelchair. But you know, we make batteries for wheelchairs, and I think they're starting to have wheelchairs that they can have, and what does that patient do? He can move himself around. It gives him some more of his own ability again, some more freedom. And those are made from lead. And the senator perks up again. He looks over to an assistant and he goes, did you know about this? Are there lead wheelchair batteries? And that we are starting to get them in the VA hospitals? The fellow says, sir, let me just, yes, sir, yes, that's true. The fellow says, okay, he says, I'm gonna give some consideration to this bill. And he voted against it. I think what he did with that one thing that he brought out, the guy didn't want to hear about highways or anything like that. He wanted something that he could relate to.
Those are the type of stories we need to remember and share for the future generations so they know where we've come and where we need to go.
Gives you motivation for things you have to do in the future.
So I think, Dan, this is the last part of the history wall. Shows some of our other great companies that are part of BCI. And oh, look, here's Hal. Yeah. Hal's been here for a long time too, hasn't he?
And a lot of with the ELBC and things like that.
Hal's the chair of the 100th Anniversary Committee, which is, he's done a great job of steering that committee for the future. And I don't know if you know Rebecca Conway. She's another great woman director, a leader for the industry. And she does our update every year on the transportation side and does a fantastic job of that. So it's nice to see some other women in the industry. When you think about Roger, and I think of Roger now as an executive director, I remember when he first started in the industry and he was working for David Weinberg, and David brought him to the conventions and he was just learning all about lead, and he really's been a great asset leading us to the next generation of lead batteries. Where do you see the future for batteries?
Ahead.
Ahead. And where ahead are you going to go?
Can't imagine the future without them.
Dan, let's get our picture. Everybody smile. Ready, set, 100 years.